The morning light came softly through the wide windows of the coffee shop, turning the wooden tables a pale gold. It was the kind of light that made even tired faces look gentle. Outside, the city moved in its usual rhythm, cars passing, horns distant, people hurrying to jobs they didn't always love. Inside, Daniel Carter sat at a small corner table with his 5-year-old daughter Lily. Daniel liked that table. From there he could see the door. He could see who came in and who left. As a single father, he had developed the habit of watching everything. It wasn't fear exactly, it was responsibility. When you are the only parent your child has, you become careful with the world. Lily sat across from him, her legs too short to reach the floor. She swung them slowly, humming to herself, while stirring whipped cream into a hot chocolate. Daniel checked his watch. He had an interview in an hour. It wasn't a big job. Just a mid-level maintenance supervisor position at a commercial office building. The kind of job that promised steady pay, health insurance, and maybe, if he worked hard enough, a small promotion one day. After 2 years of juggling temporary contracts and night shifts, steady sounded like peace. "Daddy," Lily said softly. "Are you nervous?" Daniel smiled. "A little." "That's okay," she said wisely. "You're brave." He reached across the table and squeezed her small hand. "Thanks, kiddo." The bell above the door chimed. Daniel glanced up automatically. A woman stepped inside. She wore a simple grey coat, tailored but not flashy. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly. No loud jewelry, no obvious signs of wealth. But there was something about the way she carried herself. Calm, self-contained, as if the world moved at her pace, not the other way around. She walked to the counter. The line was long. Morning rush. Behind her stood 3 men in expensive suits, speaking loudly about stocks and market forecasts. Their voices cut through the soft hum of the cafe. "Can you believe the quarterly drop?" One of them said, "If Carter Holdings doesn't restructure, they're finished." Daniel didn't pay much attention to the name. He was focused on Lily, finishing her drink without spilling it. The woman in the grey coat stepped forward when it was her turn. Before she could speak, one of the suited men let out a small, impatient sigh. "Some of us have actual meetings," he muttered, loud enough for her to hear. She didn't react. The barista smiled politely. "What can I get for you?" The woman spoke gently. "Just a black coffee, please." Simple. One of the men leaned toward his friend and whispered something. They chuckled. "Probably doesn't even know what a real coffee tastes like," he said. "People like that just sit around all day." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at the woman. She kept her eyes forward, calm, still, ignored. It wasn't loud harassment. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of quiet dismissal people get used to. The kind that chips away at dignity. Daniel stood up. "Hey," he said, his voice steady. "She was first," Daniel continued, "and she's not doing anything wrong. You can wait like everyone else." There was a pause. The tallest man looked Daniel up and down, his worn jacket, his scuffed boots. Lily sitting at the table. "And you are," the man asked, "someone who doesn't think being in a hurry makes you important." The cafe grew quieter. The barista froze mid-motion. The woman in grey turned slightly, surprised. One of the men scoffed. "Mind your business." "I am," Daniel replied calmly. "Respect in public is everyone's business." Silence lingered for a few seconds. Then the men rolled their eyes and stepped back. One muttered something under his breath, but the edge had faded. The woman received her coffee. She turned toward Daniel. For the first time, their eyes met fully. Intelligent, not offended, not fragile, just observant. "Thank you," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged. "No problem." He sat back down. Lily leaned toward him. "Daddy, were they being mean?" "A little," he said softly. "You were brave again." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes being polite is the brave thing." The woman walked toward the door. Before leaving, she paused near his table. "Interviews can be stressful," she said gently. "But courage matters more than a resume." Daniel blinked. "Excuse me." She gave a small, knowing smile. Then she left. A black SUV pulled up outside moments later. Daniel barely noticed. He finished his coffee, wiped Lily's hands, and gathered their things. The office building for his interview stood only 3 blocks away. Tall glass panels reflected the sky. The sign in front read, "Carter Holdings International." Daniel paused. The name echoed faintly in his memory. Something the men had said. He shook it off. Inside, the lobby was polished marble, quiet, controlled. A receptionist sat behind a sleek desk. "I'm here for the maintenance supervisor interview," Daniel said. She checked her tablet. "Daniel Carter." "Yes." Her eyes flickered with brief curiosity at the shared last name. "Please take the elevator to the 38th floor." 38 floors. Daniel swallowed. Lily squeezed his hand. The elevator ride felt longer than it was. When the doors opened, he stepped into a wide conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. At the far end of the room, seated at the head of a long table, was the woman from the coffee shop. Without the grey coat, her presence was unmistakable. Confident, commanding, quietly powerful. 2 executives stood beside her. Daniel froze. She looked up. "Mr. Carter," she said calmly, "please have a seat." His mind raced. One of the executives spoke formally. "You are interviewing for the building operations supervisor role." Daniel nodded slowly. The woman folded her hands on the table. "I'm Evelyn Carter," she said. The name settled in the air. CEO of Carter Holdings International, a Fortune 500 company. The company those men had discussed. Daniel's throat felt dry. He sat down carefully. "You defended me this morning," Evelyn continued, "without knowing who I was." He cleared his throat. "I didn't think that mattered." She studied him. Most people calculate before they speak. They measure risk, influence, status. "I don't," Daniel said quietly. "I noticed." The executives exchanged glances. Evelyn leaned back slightly. "Tell me about your experience," she said, returning to professional tone. The interview lasted 40 minutes. Daniel answered honestly. About his previous maintenance contracts, about managing small teams, about handling emergencies alone, about balancing night shifts while raising Lily. He did not exaggerate. He did not beg. When it ended, Evelyn stood. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." He nodded. "Thank you for the opportunity." He left with Lily, uncertain. Outside, he exhaled deeply, while Lily asked. "I'm not sure," he admitted. That evening, as he was preparing dinner in their small apartment, his phone rang, unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Carter," came the calm voice. "This is Evelyn Carter." He stood still. "Yes, ma'am. I've made a decision." He braced himself. "You're not suited for the maintenance supervisor role." His heart sank. "But," she continued gently, "I'd like to offer you a different position." He said nothing. "Director of Facilities Integrity." "Silence, it's a new role," she explained. "Someone who oversees not just operations, but workplace culture. Someone who understands dignity." Daniel swallowed. "I don't have that kind of experience. You have the kind I value." He leaned against the counter, steadying himself. "It comes with full benefits. A salary 3 times what was listed. Flexible hours for parenting." He closed his eyes. "Why?" he asked softly. There was a pause. "Because companies succeed when people inside them feel seen. This morning, I was ignored. You saw me, he had no words." "I don't need a hero," she added. "I need people who act decently when no one is watching." Lily tugged his sleeve. "Is that the lady?" He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said into the phone. "I accept." Weeks passed. Daniel adapted carefully to his new role. He worked hard, listened more than he spoke, introduced small changes, anonymous feedback systems, fair shift rotations, open door hours. Evelyn observed from a distance. She did not micromanage. One afternoon, she invited him to lunch in the executive dining room. It was quiet, private. "You have adjusted well," she said. "I'm still learning," he admitted. "That's the right answer." There was a softness between them now. Not romance, not yet. Something steadier. Respect. "You didn't ask me out," she said suddenly. He blinked. "I didn't think that was appropriate." She smiled faintly. "You're the first man in years who hasn't tried." He shifted slightly. "I didn't defend you to earn anything. I know." Silence settled. "I'd like to take you and Lily to dinner sometime," she said gently. "Not as your CEO, as Evelyn." Daniel studied her. She was powerful, wealthy, influential, but in that moment she simply looked hopeful. "I'd like that," he said. Months later, Daniel stood again in the same coffee shop. The morning light looked the same. Lily sat at the table, now swinging her legs with a little more confidence. Across from him sat Evelyn. No grey coat this time, just a soft blue sweater, no security detail waiting outside. Just 3 cups of coffee and a quiet peace. "Funny," Daniel said. "All this started right here." Evelyn nodded. "Most important things do." In small places, Lily grinned. "Daddy's brave." Evelyn smiled at her. "Yes, he is." People came and went. No one stared. No one knew that the woman sipping coffee beside him controlled a global corporation. And it didn't matter. Because what had changed his life was not her wealth. It was that she saw him back. In a world where people are often measured by status, income, or influence, Daniel had chosen simple respect. And in return, he found something steadier than fortune. He found partnership. He found opportunity. He found someone who valued quiet courage. The bell above the door chimed again. Sunlight stretched across the table. Daniel reached for Lily's hand with one hand, with the other he gently reached for Evelyn's. No grand speeches, no dramatic gestures, just warmth. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is refuse to ignore someone. And sometimes that small refusal changes everything.